I basically, sorry about that. That's advanced there. Um, okay, yeah. So I have been at Nature for quite some time, and before that, about 15 years, if one can believe it. And then before that, I was at the journal Science for a small handful of years in DC. So Nature based in London. I'm now based out of New York, but I have the same role from our New York office. Um, and I've been doing this for a while, been working for a weekly publication for a while, and I sort of do the math, and sometimes I'm shocked, that I've directed or created more than 800 covers and thousands of pieces of visual content over the years. So I've kind of seen it all, multidisciplinary space. And This is some members, not my entire team, but some members of our team at Nature in London. We were all wearing our matching Harding t-shirts. This was around a redesign that we did where we were able to create a kind of custom typeface for science called Harding. Um, Just to show a few people that, I lead a few teams, but do not do this stuff by myself. I'll be talking a bit about, what it's like at Nature and a bit about art and design. So the people in our teams have a variety of skills and backgrounds. So we have graphic design, we have information design, illustration, data visualization, photography, video, and animation, all of these as distinct fields within the larger field of visual communication and art. Some of them have specialist master's degrees in those things. Some of them, have VAs or other coursework that kind of led them to specialize in special things. In special areas, specific areas. Um, Now, in terms of a creative director, you might wonder, like, what does that mean? What do I do? And then the context of scientific publishing and publishing in general, how I like to describe it is sort of like a picture and a frame, right? So you have art and design that are thrown together a lot of times as sort of terms, art and design, but they are distinct things that work together. And the frame is the sort of the overall design system. So it could be a PDF page, it could be a website, it could be other digital touch points. And basically, so this is the place where the artwork goes into it, and the picture and the frame need to work together, but they're distinct. So the picture and the artwork is different depending on the context, right? So you can have, like what I'm showing here, is something from a review where it says a piece of scientific illustration, or you could have something that's journalistic, which would be, maybe you would have like photojournalism or photography or commissioned illustration. The picture is the art bit that can kind of depend with the frame, and they all have to be designed together in a system. And so from the design side, that means things like, the choice of typefaces that are consistent, the actual design of the pages. So at Nature, I don't know if you've ever noticed this, but we don't center things. We have a either like right or left aligned design. So it's all sort of asymmetrical. And that is, on the pages, the printed pages, which I know not very many people see anymore, but a lot of people see the PDFs in digital form. Then we also have, just classic website design. And then we have a color palette that is used for the Nature brand. So I work, for Nature, the journal, as a creative director, but I also have oversight over all of the Nature, if it has Nature in the name, like all of the other Nature journals. And so we have this color palette used throughout the group. So the ultimate effect is meant to be when you see something from Nature or the Nature branded group, you know that it's from Nature. It has, a certain quality in terms of the artwork and the design. It all works together. So at any kind of touch point, wherever you see it, it's kind of screams Nature. So as I mentioned before, I don't do this all by myself. So we have uh, but what I do is I create the styles and communicate them through style guides. So to make sure that we can do kind of quality at scale. So we have different style guides for like the primary research that obviously we're most known for, the scientific illustration for things that are like, let's say, news and views or sort of expert analysis pieces and reviews. Data visualization, which is more for our journalism. So we have writers and reporters that do sort of news and opinion pieces for scientists. And then we have photography, video, and then conceptual editorial illustration, and we have our own style guide for covers. Now, some of these are public facing, and some of these are just for the teams. I will put a link in the chat to the ones that are public facing once I'm done, so people can see these. But this is a very quick look, just very, very quickly at like these are the kinds of things for primary research that we, determine are useful for authors to sort of guide them through things like, color resolution, use of things. We have a digital version of this now. It's a website, and I'll put a link in the chat. Then we have a different one for commissioned illustration. So this is more around the scientific illustration stuff. And then you're basically communicating our principles around sort of like, what makes a really good sort of explanatory scientific visualization around, we have things around hierarchy, visual editing. So just as in, someone would edit words, it's the same process, but for visuals, taking out redundant elements. We, do things to improve clarity and accessibility. We use color in very specific ways. We have specific color palettes for different kinds of content. Um, we kind of go through what is a figure and what isn't a figure, which I don't have time to delve into. And then this is like our data visualization style guide. So we have very specific ways that we create data viz based on best practices. These are just a couple of pages from our photography style guide. So we have a group of like the visuals team, and they're their own team that deal with photography and video. And so we have a very specific way that we want when we commission photographers to do work that, we want them to sort of, create it in a specific way. Static versus active photos. This is we commissioned this photo shoot, and this is sort of an example of the picture in the frame, right? So, we have our design system here, we have our typography, we have, it's a portrait, but it's bringing in a sense of place and dynamism. Then this is a page from an illustration style guide, kind of an older one now, but basically kind of do's and don'ts around commissioned illustration. And and then these are just a few pages from our style guide for cover artwork, which is public facing, and I would recommend if you're thinking about doing artwork for Nature and submitting it, please have a look at this guide. Different journals have different styles and want different things, and that's something else I'd like to point out. So if you're doing a cover for, a cover illustration or artwork that you'd like to submit to a journal, have a look at what the journal has done in the past, because they all do and want different things. But we have created this for Nature and the Nature group of journals to help. And it goes through things like, what makes a good cover, what doesn't, things that we like and don't like. We do not permit AI generated images. And there may be questions about that, but that's all I'm going to say about that at the moment. And I thought I would just kind of run through a typical day and sort of how I got here sort of segment, because I get those questions a lot. So a typical day for me could be, this was just sort of a handful of things that I thought of, but cover artwork in that we do one every week. So at Nature, and the other journals are monthly. And that could be, occasionally I will do my own artwork for covers, but I like and I prefer to feature art from research groups and others rather than doing it myself. So it's mostly directing other artists. And then, the usual management thing like catch ups with team members. We have a decent sized team, so that's having meetings around artwork, and there's a sort of in-person ideation, old school, kind of, or in-person meeting video at least, but they're discussions, just sort of around how to visualize something. Reviewing and making sure that everybody's following the various style guides. There's fun things like editorial policy, and then sort of commissioning artwork, and then design of like all of the Nature branded things that you see in the universe. They all have to be kind of reviewed and designed in specific ways that follow our core design. How I got here was a bit like, maybe like some others on the webinar, but basically, I had an undergraduate degree in political science, which usually surprises people. I wanted to do it in art, but I was told back in the day that art wasn't serious enough, which I don't know, as some of you, relate to that. So, but it was good. I got a very well-rounded education, and I took a lot of science classes and art classes during that time. But I do not have a science background. I do not have. I don't come from a lab. I don't have a PhD in a particular field. Um, then I had my first job in editorial, um, and to cut this short, yeah, I did some professional design education, and then I had a job at Science, working as the associate art director, then art director there, and then I went back and got a graduate degree in design, and it was not in, it was actually in something a little bit different. It was sort of design for sustainability and health, and it basically brought in like in social goods, so it brought in designers from different disciplines to work together, and that was actually really interesting. And then ended up with job at Nature. And so these are just some of the core skills that I think, even though you can have a variety of paths to where you are, I think, looking at the core skills is almost kind of more useful than looking at sort of where you got your degree or what you were doing. And so, there were a few that kind of really helped around like critical thinking and reasoning, from just classic education and, in a science, in a science base, and art base, but not a specialist. And then, my job is in visual communication, right? So, um, I sort of focused on that after my first job in editorial when I was actually writing and editing, not doing artwork. And I was working in a small enough place where I was able to dabble in the design and decided that I actually really enjoy this more. But I realized that I needed design and art fundamentals, right? So it's hard to replace coursework, even if it's like, I took courses at night basically and kept my day job, which I recommend, in the beginning. And and learn those fundamentals, and then you can kind of go and iterate and see where life takes you, which is sort of more or less what happened with me. The technical skills I won't dwell on because I know we're short on time, but it's a lot of Adobe. I just wanted to say there are a lot of really great um, things like Inkscape and Inkscape and GIMP that are free, but when it comes to working with publishers, we are pretty much entrenched in the Adobe universe, so we're going to probably be asking you for Adobe files, regardless of how you got there. We're probably going to want to, you're going to need to export into things that are Adobe world. And then I just put we use a lot of various things, but I just put a few examples of, we use Figma for some of our digital design stuff, Blender, Cinema 4D for 3D stuff. Database, there's a variety of things, but some of our information designers use things like QGIS for maps, raw, R, D3, JavaScript, and those are just a handful of things. So that's all. Thank you.